readers, it's Sasha, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my very first book haul. So I intended for this to be a book outlet book haul because I went on book outlet and I just purchased I think it was 9 books. So that was the plan, and plans change. So within the past few days, and I guess within the past week, I've gotten so many book packages in the mail that weren't book outlets, so I decided to just do this this big book haul that isn't just book outlet. So I've divided it into places where I've gotten the books from, as well as with book outlet I made categories within the book outlet category. So subcategories. The first one are continuations to series that I think I'm going to really love. Second one are books for my TBR, and the third one are trashy books that I probably don't know if I'll like, but we'll see. Let's do this. So start with Amazon. So I've ordered 3 or 4 books off of Amazon, but I've only received 2, so I'm only going to talk about the 2 that I've received. If anybody watched my April wrap-up, then you would know that I really loved the Flawed book by Cecilia Ahern, which is the first book in a duology, I believe. So I bought the second one, which is Perfect by Cecilia Ahern. My ring light isn't a big fan, but it's fine. So I'm not going to go into detail on the plot because honestly, this is a second book and I don't want to give away anything. But I really loved this series. It is about a girl who gets branded as flawed, which in society is this really big deal, and you cannot get brandished as flawed or else you lose some of your rights as a human being. And this is the second book, and I'm very excited to read it. It's going to be pretty high on my TBR right now. I really loved it, so I'm really excited to actually finish this series and I'm ready. So the second book that I got off of Amazon is Fragments of the Lost by Megan Miranda. It's basically about this girl whose boyfriend just died and his mom is asking her to pack up his room even though she blames her for the accident that happened. And while this girl is going through her boyfriend's room, she just starts figuring out different things about him that she's not particularly a fan of. And she's just kind of wondering whether she really knew this person at all. So I think it sounds pretty interesting. I don't know. It's one of those stereotypical books that I will probably end up giving 3.5 stars, but I'm excited to read it. And it's little, and the printing is really large. It's only 370 pages, so it should be an easy read. Next, I'm going to move on to Chapters. So Chapters is the US equivalent to Barnes & Noble. I don't know anything else that it's equivalent to, but it's the Canadian book chain. So the first book I've already talked about a couple of times on this channel, and I can't pick it up. And that is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. It is my current read. I'm about 100 pages in, I think. It's basically just a book in a new trilogy of the Shadowhunter world with the children of Will and Tessa Herondale from The Infernal Devices. And I am doing a full book talk analysis review on my channel within the next couple of weeks. But I just wanted to pick it up. I was really excited. So far, am I in love? Not really. I don't know, we'll see what happens, but it's definitely my least favorite introduction into a series in the Shadowhunter world that I've read so far. Maybe that'll change. I mean, it is 570 pages long, so I've got time to dive in. So the next book that I picked up from Chapters is a book that's been very high on my to-buy list for ever. It is The Darkest Legacy by Alexandra Bracken, which is the 4th book in the Darkest Minds trilogy, but it actually ends up following one of our beloved characters from the Darkest Minds and into a new life that she's living. I love the Darkest Minds. I thought it was a really good series, but this is my favorite character from the series, and I want to read more about her. I'm not going to give you her name or go into detail in case you haven't read it, but yeah, I'm really excited to read her. So the next book that I picked up was on recommendation from Haley in Bookland. She really loves this book, and I've been getting a little bit more into this specific genre lately, so I thought I would give it a shot. And that is The Lovely War by Julie Berry. So it's a bit of an interesting read. So basically there are 4 people who have fallen in love, 2 couples have fallen in love, and they come from very different backgrounds and very different parts of the world. But the story is told by Aphrodite, who has to spin their fate or face judgment at Mount Olympus. So I don't know, it's gonna be interesting. I want to read this really badly. I love a good war love story. For some reason that's what I'm into right now. But I don't know how it's gonna be with Aphrodite being the one who tells about it. But I'm still pretty excited to read this. It's a bigger book than I was anticipating, and I'm kind of excited. I think this is going to be a good time. So, the next book that I picked up from Chapters is Ash Princess by, oh my god, Laura Sebastian. This is a book about a girl named Theodosia who lives in a palace that was taken over by, I believe, the Kaiser. So the Kaiser took over her palace and her mother was killed before her eyes. So she has been given the title of Ash Princess, which is a title of shame that she's been wearing as prisoner within this palace. And then one day the Kaiser comes to her and asks, well, doesn't really ask, tells her to do something, and now she has blood on her hands and she has very little hope of ever reclaiming her rightful title as the queen. You know, she's a smart little princess and she's gonna figure out a way to get out of this, and I'm ready. Fantasy and I have not been best friends. I'm gonna put it that way. I'm not particularly in love with the fantasy genre as of now. However, this sounds really interesting. I love a good kingdom story. I love a good princess story. So I am really excited to pick this up. It is the first in a trilogy. I'm excited. I don't even know if the third book is out yet. I feel like it might be. But I'm excited to actually get a chance to read this and maybe dive a little bit back into fantasy. So we'll see. The final book that I ended up picking up from Chapters is one of my May TBR books, and it surprised me because it's a very little story. Like, it's barely 300 pages, and that is The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. Like, it is tiny, but I'm very excited. So this is a book about Mozart's older sister who really wants to be a composer, but she knows, like, deep down that she can't because she lives in a pretty hard time in history for women, so she has to become a wife when she reaches the age to be. And then a mysterious stranger approaches her and he's like,
I can make all your dreams come true.
And she's like, okay. But like, it comes with a cost, I think, or something like that. So I am reading this as my prompt for the Asian readathon where I read a book by an Asian author. I'm excited. Like, the cover is freaking gorgeous. Like, I love a good cover. It's gonna be really easy. I wanted there to be more to the story just because, like, this is something I'm really interested in. I grew up playing the piano and my fiance is studying classical music right now, so it's something that I was really excited for, but it's so little. Like, I'm hoping that it meets the expectations that I have for it, but we'll see. So now it is time for the book outlet book haul, the one that I had wanted to do originally. So I'll start with the books from series that I already own because I don't even really know the premises of these books. So the first one is Defy the Worlds by Claudia Gray, which is the second book in the Defy the Stars trilogy. I think it might be actually called the Constellations trilogy, but one second. I'll get the book. It's like right beside me, but I've now covered it with books I've already talked about, so hold on. This is the first book. I like this cover a lot more. I'm really sad that this cover is kind of like dog shit, but it's okay. It's sci-fi, which is not a genre that I typically gravitate toward, but I think I'm really gonna love this. So basically this book, let me just like not hold it like that. This book is about a girl who is trained to protect her planet Genesis at all costs, and then she meets Abel, who is like a computer programmed boy, I think, type thing that has been floating around space whose feelings have started like developing, I guess. I really don't know. I think I'm really gonna like this because I do love a good sci-fi every like once in a while. It's just not very often that you can see me gravitating toward a sci-fi story, but I think I'm gonna love it. And the second book was like $2 on Book Outlet, so I was like, I'll get it because that'll be good. So the second book and the final book that I picked up as like a series continuation is, oh my god, I cannot hold books, Legendary by Stephanie Garber, and it is the follow-up book to Caraval. So I've heard very mixed opinions on Caraval. Like, people either love it, like love it, or they like did not enjoy it at all and thought it was cheesy and stupid and annoying. But this is the kind of story that I really do think I'm gonna love. Like, I want to love it. I want to be a part of that group. So I ended up buying the second book because I was like, that'll be motivation, like, for me to love it because I have both books. So Caraval is a performance that happens once a year in this, like, pretty close by to these two sisters' villages, but their father has just arranged them to go into marriage. So Scarlett, I think she's like the main sister, thinks that her dreams of seeing the Caraval are completely crushed. There's probably more. I did not bother continuing reading. But she ends up getting an invitation for the first time in her entire life to go see Caraval, so she's really excited, and so this is, I think, just like the journey to like go there and be there. But I don't know, these covers, I'm like having a really hard time holding books today. These covers are really beautiful, so I really want to love them. Like, I think I'm going to. So the next book that I picked up is a book that I saw on a Clockwork Readers channel, and I believe she unhauled it, but I feel like that's fine. Like, I'm gonna like it. And that is Hunted by Megan Spooner. So Hunted is basically like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So I believe her name is Eva. Eva's father has gone missing, and he was obsessively hunting a creature, and so Eva is just like, okay, I'll just hunt the creature as well, that'll be cool. And her sister is like, no, why are you doing that? Like, father went missing, stop. But she's like, I'm gonna do it anyway, and she ends up hunting the creature, who I'm assuming is a beast. So I love a good retelling, but this was just like another retelling that I was really excited about, and it was on my TBR, and it was like $4 on Book Outlet, so I bought it. So the next book that I bought, I kind of regret a little bit. This is a debut book for a debut author, and the only reason I bought it is because it's a Moroccan-inspired story, and I just visited Morocco in November, and I loved it, so I wanted like a piece of that in my life. It is Mirage by Samaya Dode, I believe it is, and I've heard not great things about this story. I've heard that it very much reads like a debut novel. However, the concept really does intrigue me. So it's basically about this girl who lives under the regime of, I believe they're called the Valtex, and she's a dreamer. So she dreams of what life was like prior to the empire coming in and ruling. So she dreams of poetry and songs and dance and all the kinds of like fun stuff that you can have. And one day she wants to go on an adventure. And that adventure comes to her a bit quicker than she had anticipated, because she ends up getting kidnapped and taken to the palace, where she meets the princess, who she looks almost identical to. And the princess is very much a hated person in the community. Like, she's just really bitchy and no one likes her. They have told her that she is going to be the double of the princess, and she's going to be the one who goes out in public and like mingles and gets people to like her, and basically they tell her that she has to be willing to die for the kingdom. So it definitely sounds interesting. It's very like, it's fantasy, but I've heard a lot of people are calling it like almost sci-fi. I don't know, the cover like underneath is really not a cute time. Like, I don't enjoy this like dirty ass looking cover. But then you just can kind of pretend that that's not a real thing and just look at this prettiness. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I really wanted to read a Moroccan-inspired story. When I found that it existed, I was very excited, just because that was easily, A, the farthest I've ever been away from my home, but also one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had away from my home, so I loved it. The next book that I picked up has deckled edges. I don't know if you can see them, but like, appreciate them all the same. You can kind of see them. The ring light's not a big fan. But it is Four Dead Queens by Astrid Schultz. I've heard pretty much only good things about this story, and I'm excited to read it. It's basically about this girl who is like a thief. She's one of the most esteemed thieves in their like kingdom of, I believe it's Eronia? Let me check. No, it's Ionia. And she ends up stealing a package that was meant for this boy named Varen. And so Varen is like, okay, no, I'm gonna get my package back. So he does, and then their lives kind of become tangled up in a conspiracy that has left all 4 of the queens of Ionia dead, which is spicy. So they're on the run now, and they realize that they have to try to figure out who killed the queen so that they can kind of clear their name. And so I love, like I said, a good kingdom story is always just like right up my alley. And this has been on my TBR for a little while now. So I'm excited. It's like a thriller, but like kingdom, but like fantasy, but like deckled edges. So I'm excited, and I think it's gonna be a good time. And it is a standalone. I just really adore a good standalone, because I don't like buying series, because sometimes series disappoint me. Now we're on to the complete trash books. So these are books where I was just like not sure what to buy, and my cart was like, if you want to get free shipping, you need to get to this amount of things. So instead of buying books for my TBR, I was just like, okay, I'll just look at what they have available and I'll go from there. So I found 4 books that led me up to the total that I needed for free shipping. So that's exciting. However, I don't think they're gonna be that good. It'll be a time. We'll just definitely see. Although this cover is like really sexy in the way that it's like soft. Like, we love a good soft cover. So the first book that I ended up purchasing was Bad Girls with Perfect Faces by Lynn Weingarten. I don't have a particular reason to buy this other than the main character's name is Sasha, and I never get a good Sasha story. Like, no main character is ever named my name. So this is like when you go into a store and you never find your name on a keychain. Like, this was me in this moment. So I was like, I'm gonna buy it. And then I read the synopsis, and it could be interesting. It's basically about Sasha, whose best friend Xavier gets back together with his ex-girlfriend, who ends up being like this cheating, mean person that Sasha like really hates. So she ends up deciding to troll Ivy. So she goes online, like pretending to be a guy, trying to like catch her in the act of cheating. Apparently it goes like sickeningly wrong, and she realizes that you have to be careful of like who you're pretending to be online. I don't know. I'm not particularly thrilled and excited about this story. I'm honestly just excited that she's named Sasha, because nobody ever is named Sasha. But who knows, like this could really turn out to be like a solid 5-star read for me. Like we don't know, so we're ready. Let's do this. So the next book that I ended up picking up is And Then There Were Four by Nancy Werlin. So this is now officially one of the lowest rated books on my TBR, so that's a kind of scary for me, but it's okay. It's basically about these 5 kids who are being killed by their parents. And that's not a spoiler, that's literally on the back of the book. They figure out that their parents are like plotting to kill them. My expectations are now quite low, but it's okay. I feel like it could easily be like a good read for me, because I do love a good trash time. So we'll see. The next book that I picked up is The Accident Season by Moira Foley Doyle. Moira Foley Doyle. That is a mouthful. It's basically about this like family who's prone to accidents, and every October like there's a new accident. Some years the accidents are like really not severe at all, like they're just cuts and scrapes, and then some years they're very severe, like her father died in one of these accidents. However, now that her and her 2 best friends are 17, apparently things are different, and it starts to get a bit of a fantasy element and a bit of a magical realism element. Not typically my style, but I thought it sounded interesting, so I decided to pick it up because it was literally 99 cents. So we'll see. My anticipations for these 4 books are very low. Like, I'm not going into this being like, let's go 5-star, top-notch quality. But sometimes we just need a read that is not 5-star and top-notch, and it's just kind of like stupid and lame. And I think this will do that for me. So the final book, and this one I'm actually kind of excited about. I feel like the ideas of this specific author are really interesting, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about her. This is Bad Romance by Heather Demetrios. So I just, first of all, really enjoyed the cover. Like, there are some happy flowers, and then we've got some dead sour flowers, so I thought that was cool. So it's about Grace, who has a very controlling home life. Like, her father, or her stepfather rather, is just a really negative human being, probably borderline verbally abusive. I don't think he crosses the line to physical abuse, but still. And her mother just makes her do every single thing around the house, like clean, scrub dirt that isn't even on the floor. So she's just really tired of living there. So she wants out, and she wants to be like a Hollywood director. She wants to live a very different lifestyle. And then she meets Gavin. And Gavin is charming and funny and sexy, and she's really excited. And then she finds out that he's actually also very controlling and very dangerous. When they fall in love, she's very excited, and she's like, oh my god, like this is so fantastic. And she doesn't anticipate this turning into another situation where she feels like she's imprisoned and trapped. So this is one of the first stories that I will ever read that is going to be touching on abuse in teenage relationships. I believe they're teenagers anyway. And honestly, like, I've had a couple other books by Heather Demetrios on my radar for a while. Like, I have one of her books, Little Universes, which just came out in April, on my TBR. Like, I really want to read it. So I think this will be an interesting time for me. I do anticipate liking this more than the other 3 that I just talked about, but I'm excited. I think this is going to be a good read for me. I'm very excited to finally get these on my shelf where they belong, instead of just sitting here waiting for me to do this video and me procrastinating and putting it off. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books. I mean, there's quite a few here, so I'm sure some of you have read some of these. And let me know if you've enjoyed them, or if you didn't like them, or why you didn't like them. Why is one of these sticky? That's not fun. Until next time, bye readers!